What makes Sigma males different isn't just their independence or their refusal to follow the usual hierarchies of power. It's something far more subtle and far more unnerving to those around them, their intelligence. Not the loud, performative kind that tries to dominate a conversation, but the kind that hides in plain sight. The kind that studies patterns, notices details most miss, and quietly stores away knowledge for the exact moment it is needed. You see, intelligence in Sigmas doesn't look like a spotlight, it looks like a shadow, present, calm, but powerful enough to shift the direction of everything around it. It unsettles people not because Sigmas flaunt it, but because they don't need to. Their insight comes out only when necessary, and when it does, it leaves others wondering how they saw what no one else did. This is why the intelligence of Sigma males is often described as terrifying, not in a dramatic or sinister way, but in the quiet realization that you cannot manipulate or outthink someone who has already mapped out the game before you even began playing. Today we'll explore 6 reasons why Sigma intelligence carries this weight, why it unsettles, intrigues, and commands respect without force. So sit back, let the noise of the world fade for a moment, and let's take a calm, steady look at what makes the Sigma male mind so uniquely powerful. And yes, a little terrifying. Number 1, they see patterns. Others miss. Sigmas notice connections where most see chaos. This quality is not just a personality trait, it reflects a deeper cognitive pattern. Psychologists often describe it as a heightened form of pattern recognition, the ability to detect recurring cycles in behavior, environments, or even subtle shifts in social dynamics. Where the average person may only perceive a random mix of actions and reactions, the Sigma brain instinctively scans for signals beneath the noise. This is why they often appear several steps ahead, predicting outcomes before others even sense that a change is coming. In human behavior, this translates into what many mistake for intuition. For example, research in cognitive psychology shows that people who excel at pattern recognition tend to unconsciously link small details like tone of voice, body language, or inconsistencies in actions to larger behavioral trends. Sigma males thrive in this space. When interacting in the workplace, they quickly recognize who is aligned with genuine collaboration and who is simply playing politics. In relationships, they are adept at spotting repeating cycles of conflict or affection, which allows them to anticipate and adapt before problems escalate. To others, it might look like luck or uncanny foresight, but in reality, it's the product of an analytical mind constantly mapping cause and effect. Interestingly, neuroscience backs this up. Studies on the brain's prefrontal cortex, the region linked to planning and decision-making, reveal that some individuals develop stronger pathways for recognizing patterns across time. This isn't about raw IQ or book smarts, it's about how information is organized and retrieved. Sigma males, often solitary by nature, spend more time observing than broadcasting. That quiet observation sharpens their ability to connect dots. Over time, this habit builds what's known as predictive intelligence, the skill of not just understanding the present, but forecasting the future based on recurring cues. What makes this ability entertaining, even unsettling, is how subtle it is. A Sigma doesn't announce their insights or attempt to manipulate situations loudly. They simply watch as events unfold exactly as they expected. This can make them appear mysterious or even intimidating to others who struggle to understand how they just knew. In truth, the secret lies in their capacity to recognize cycles where most people see only chaos, making them masters of foresight in a world that rarely rewards stillness and silence. Number 2, their silence is strategic. A Sigma's quietness isn't emptiness, it's observation. While many people rush to fill silence with words, Sigmas treat it as a tool. Their stillness is not a void, but a form of awareness. Studies in psychology show that introverted individuals often process information more deeply, engaging in what researchers call internal reflection. This means that while others are speaking, a Sigma is quietly noting body language, tone, inconsistencies, and unspoken meaning. They rarely waste words, and because of this, when they do speak, their insights carry unusual weight. People often underestimate them, mistaking silence for lack of presence, until a Sigma's carefully chosen words reveal that they've been paying attention all along. This ability mirrors practices found in mindfulness traditions where attentive silence sharpens perception. In fact, neuroscientists have discovered that people who engage in deliberate observation often activate regions of the brain tied to empathy and decision-making. A Sigma may not always engage in small talk, but when it comes to moments that matter, solving a problem, offering advice, or addressing conflict, their words are distilled from keen observation rather than impulse. That's why what they say can feel almost surgical, cutting through noise to reveal truth. Entertainment media often exaggerates this quality through characters like Sherlock Holmes or Jason Bourne, men whose silence and sharp perception give them an edge. While not every Sigma is solving crimes or operating in secret intelligence, the principle is the same. Their strength lies in seeing what others miss. This quiet observation can make people uneasy because it strips away pretenses. A Sigma notices when someone's words don't match their actions or when subtle cues hint at hidden motives. This gives them a reputation for being hard to deceive. In social settings, their silence can feel magnetic. People lean in, curious about what they're thinking, sometimes projecting their own insecurities into the quiet. When the Sigma finally speaks, it often shifts the entire atmosphere of the conversation. Their words carry the weight of restraint, like arrows released only when the target is clear. Far from emptiness, their silence is presence. A steady reminder that power isn't always loud, and wisdom doesn't always announce itself. For the Sigma male, observation is their language and silence is their strength. Number 3, they learn independently. Unlike many who crave validation or thrive on group consensus, Sigma males tend to walk a very different path, one shaped by independence, self-study, and a hunger for knowledge that is not bound by what is trending or widely accepted. This trait makes them stand out as original thinkers, men who explore ideas from a broad spectrum of sources, often piecing together insights others overlook. Instead of following the well-worn trails of conventional wisdom, they carve out their own intellectual landscapes, guided more by curiosity than by social approval. History shows us that many groundbreaking minds operated in this way. Think of Nikola Tesla, who spent years in isolation developing concepts that would later power the modern world. Or Henry David Thoreau, whose retreat to Walden Pond was not just about solitude, but about stripping away distractions so he could think clearly. Sigma males mirror this approach. They value depth over noise, reflection over reaction, and originality over conformity. This is not to say they reject all ideas from the mainstream, but rather that they filter them carefully, questioning before accepting and often reshaping knowledge into something entirely new. Psychologists have long recognized the benefits of this kind of independence. Studies show that self-directed learning improves problem-solving skills, enhances creativity, and builds resilience. By relying on themselves to gather and test information, Sigma males cultivate a mental flexibility that makes them better prepared to handle unexpected challenges. In contrast, those who depend heavily on external validation can fall into echo chambers, where new ideas are stifled and critical thinking takes a back seat. This independence also gives Sigma males a certain unpredictability. Because they are not tethered to group norms, they can shift perspectives quickly, often surprising others with solutions that seem to come out of nowhere. In truth, these solutions are the result of quiet, consistent self-study. For women, peers, and even rivals, this intellectual autonomy can be both fascinating and intimidating. It's one thing to follow the crowd, it's another to watch someone chart their own course and succeed at it. Ultimately, what makes this trait so powerful is its authenticity. Sigma males do not study to impress, they study to understand. They do not seek applause, they seek truth. And in a world saturated with noise and performance, that kind of independence is not just rare, it's quietly revolutionary. Number 4, they think long-term. Where others are swept away by the emotions of the present moment, Sigma males take a step back and see further down the road. This quality is often misunderstood as being overly cautious or detached, but in truth, it's a quiet strength that sets them apart. Sigmas possess the ability to weigh long-term consequences before taking action. Rather than rushing headlong into situations for short-term gain, they pause, analyze, and make decisions with foresight. It's not hesitation, it's calculation. This ability allows them to outmaneuver others in ways that seem subtle at first, but become strikingly clear over time. Psychologists often describe this type of thinking as delayed gratification, the willingness to forego immediate rewards in favor of larger, long-term benefits. In fact, a famous psychological study known as the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment demonstrated that children who could resist eating a marshmallow in order to receive two later were more likely to achieve higher levels of success in adulthood. Sigma males naturally embody this principle in everyday life. Their patience and focus on the bigger picture keep them from being caught in the traps of impulsivity. Consider how this plays out in real-world scenarios. While others may jump into risky business ventures driven by hype or pressure, Sigmas carefully research, observing patterns and weighing the sustainability of an idea. This allows them to avoid costly mistakes and instead place their energy where the payoff is more certain. Even in relationships where emotions often cloud judgment, Sigma males tend to see beyond surface attraction. They look at compatibility, long-term values, and the character of a person before committing, something that shields them from heartbreaks that many others stumble into. This ability to think ahead also ties to evolutionary psychology. Human survival has always depended on foresight, whether predicting weather changes for farming, preparing for harsh winters, or recognizing threats in a social group. Those who could anticipate the future had the advantage. Sigma males carry this instinct into the modern world, though now it manifests not in hunting or survival, but in navigating careers, relationships, and personal growth. They move quietly, rarely broadcasting their plans, yet their decisions often reveal a depth of wisdom that others only recognize in hindsight. At first glance, their approach might look like passivity. People may think the Sigma is hesitant or slow to act, but the truth is quite the opposite. He's playing a different game. Where others are reacting to what's happening now, the Sigma is responding to what is about to happen. This foresight doesn't make him louder or more noticeable, it makes him more precise. He doesn't need to outpace everyone else, he only needs to stay one step ahead, and that is more than enough. Number 5, they resist manipulation. Because Sigma males study people so closely, they develop an almost uncanny ability to see beyond surface-level behavior. Their strength lies not in being skeptical of everyone, but in being highly observant. Unlike many who take words at face value, Sigmas pay attention to patterns, inconsistencies, and the subtle cues most people overlook. Tone shifts, body language, timing, and even silence. This makes them very difficult to deceive. When someone tries to play emotional games, offer false promises, or mask hidden motives, a Sigma can often sense it before others even notice something is wrong. It's not that they are psychic, it's that they've trained their minds to read between the lines and understand human behavior in its raw form. From a psychological perspective, this ability comes from a combination of traits. Studies on introverted and analytical personalities show that they often excel at pattern recognition and critical thinking. Sigmas tend to operate as both introverts and independents, which means they spend a lot of time quietly observing. In fact, research in social psychology shows that people who spend more time listening and less time speaking often retain more accurate impressions of others. This reflective habit allows Sigmas to pick up on the kinds of contradictions or manipulative tactics that slip by unnoticed in a fast-moving conversation. Their resistance to manipulation is also rooted in independence. Because Sigma males don't rely heavily on validation, approval, or group belonging, they are less vulnerable to tactics like guilt-tripping, peer pressure, or flattery. Manipulation often works by exploiting a person's need to be liked or accepted, but Sigmas aren't fueled by these needs. Instead, they value autonomy, making them harder to corner emotionally. A manipulator who thrives on controlling others finds it unsettling when their usual tricks, emotional outbursts, false praise, or promises fall flat against a Sigma's calm detachment. This doesn't mean Sigmas are immune to deception. Rather, they are much less likely to be controlled for long. Over time, they notice the inconsistencies, the half-truths, and the emotional hooks others use. And once they see the game, they quietly step out of it. History and literature give us countless examples of figures who embodied this detached, observant mindset. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who advised people to judge others by their actions and not just their words, or modern thinkers who stress the importance of critical thinking in a world full of persuasion. In the end, what makes Sigma intelligence so unsettling to manipulators is not just sharp observation, but the refusal to play along. They recognize the script, but they won't act the role written for them. For those who depend on control, that's not just inconvenient, it's terrifying. Number 6. They combine logic with intuition. Sigma males are often described as individuals who live outside traditional social hierarchies, but what makes them truly fascinating is the way they think. Unlike many people who lean heavily on either logic or emotion, Sigmas manage to blend both into a kind of intelligence that feels unusually adaptive. They have the ability to analyze a situation with clarity and rational structure, much like a scientist breaking down a formula. But at the same time, they carry a deep intuitive sense that alerts them when something is off, even before concrete evidence appears. This balance is rare, and it's part of why they are often misunderstood yet deeply respected when their insights prove correct. From a psychological perspective, this combination of logic and intuition isn't accidental. Studies in neuroscience reveal that human decision-making is not purely rational. The brain integrates data-driven thinking from the prefrontal cortex with emotional input from the limbic system. People who can harmonize these two processes tend to make better long-term decisions because they don't ignore subtle emotional cues, nor do they allow feelings to cloud the facts. Sigma males embody this principle almost naturally. They don't dismiss emotions as weakness, but they also don't allow emotions to control them. Instead, they treat feelings as signals, clues pointing towards something worth examining. Consider history's great inventors, explorers, and thinkers. Many of them had this Sigma-like quality. Nikola Tesla, for instance, was a man whose ideas came to him in flashes of intuition, but he paired those visions with rigorous scientific method to bring them to life. Similarly, modern psychology recognizes the power of gut instinct in high-stakes environments like military strategy or entrepreneurship. Experienced leaders often make split-second choices based not just on the information at hand, but on a sense developed through observation and pattern recognition that something feels right or wrong. Sigmas thrive in that space. They know that life rarely offers full clarity, so their adaptability comes from balancing hard evidence with an awareness of unseen patterns. This adaptability makes them particularly effective in unpredictable situations. While others may freeze waiting for all the facts or rush forward fueled only by feelings, the Sigma remains steady. He gathers what he knows, listens to what he feels, and moves with quiet confidence. That is why others often find their intelligence intimidating. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it works. And it works in ways most people can't explain. In the end, Sigma intelligence is not about knowing everything, but about reading both the seen and the unseen, the measurable and the intuitive, and blending them into choices that others didn't even see coming. When you step back and look at the Sigma male's intelligence, what stands out is that it's not built on speed, volume, or showmanship. It's built on depth. Unlike conventional models of intelligence that often reward quick wit, public recognition, or flashy displays of knowledge, Sigma intelligence thrives in quiet spaces. It's the discipline of observing without interruption, the patience to see how events unfold before making a move, and the courage to pursue a different path even when it means walking alone. This form of intelligence resonates with the ancient Stoic idea that wisdom comes not from reacting to every impulse, but from understanding which impulses matter and which can be ignored. What unsettles many people is that this way of thinking contrasts sharply with the constant noise of modern culture. In a world that rewards immediate answers, endless commentary, and visible success, the Sigma male's silence and calculated restraint often feel like a challenge. Psychology describes this as a form of introverted intuition, a cognitive process that thrives on connecting patterns, anticipating outcomes, and spotting subtleties that others miss. While some may see it as detachment, it's actually a deep mental clarity at work. Their intelligence doesn't need applause. It naturally shapes their choices, builds their boundaries, and guides them toward results that often catch others by surprise. The truly unsettling part, and perhaps why many call it terrifying, is that you can't compete with someone who isn't even playing your game. Sigmas don't measure themselves by external standards, so they move at their own pace and operate under their own rules. Research in behavioral science shows that people who operate outside of traditional social hierarchies are harder to predict and influence, which gives them a strategic advantage. In many ways, the Sigma male mirrors this truth. By refusing to chase approval, he creates a level of freedom that others struggle to understand. For men watching this, there's a larger lesson here. Intelligence is not about clever comebacks or recognition from others. It's about clarity in thought, patience in action, and awareness in decision-making. Whether or not you consider yourself a Sigma, these qualities can transform you into someone steady, thoughtful, and deeply respected. The most powerful minds don't shout for attention. They let wisdom surface only when it's needed, quietly, naturally, and in ways that leave a lasting impact. There's something quietly unsettling about meeting a true Sigma male. Not unsettling in the sense of danger or hostility, but unsettling because he forces you to rethink the very fabric of how people move through the world. Most men, whether they realize it or not, follow predictable patterns. Some chase attention, others cling to groups. Many define their worth by external measures, status, wealth, approval. But a Sigma male, he moves differently. His very presence can feel like a mirror, reflecting back the hidden insecurities of those around him. That's why encountering one can feel almost disturbing. It unsettles what you thought you knew about strength, independence, and self-respect. Imagine walking into a room full of chatter, and in the corner sits a man quietly absorbed in his own thoughts. He isn't aloof, yet he's not seeking connection either. His calm detachment pulls your attention, not because he's trying to be seen, but because he's perfectly fine not being seen at all. That paradox alone sets him apart. What's truly fascinating is that real Sigma males aren't trying to project an image. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, I must appear mysterious today. Instead, their mystery flows naturally from a way of life that refuses to conform. They're not antisocial, but they are selective. They're not arrogant, but they don't bow to validation. Psychologists describe this as self-differentiation. The ability to maintain your identity without being consumed by the opinions, expectations, or pressures of others. Most people struggle with it their entire lives. For the Sigma, it's second nature, but here's where the disturbing part comes in. Meeting a Sigma often makes people uncomfortable, not because of anything he says or does, but because he reveals, by contrast, how much others are driven by noise. His independence exposes dependence. His calm exposes restlessness. His quiet exposes insecurity. So how do you know when you've actually encountered a real Sigma male and not just someone pretending? Today we'll explore 8 subtle signs that reveal his presence. These aren't loud signals. They don't announce themselves, but once you see them, you'll know. Let's begin. Number 1, his presence feels unhurried. A Sigma doesn't rush into conversations or force his way into circles. His presence is marked by patience, precision, and an ability to move at his own rhythm. In today's world, where quick replies, instant connections, and rapid-fire exchanges dominate, this calm and measured approach stands out like a rare gem. He is comfortable with pauses, silences, and letting moments breathe, which is often misunderstood in a culture that confuses speed with effectiveness. Instead of scrambling to fill every quiet space, he understands that silence carries weight. Psychologists even note that pauses in conversation can create deeper trust and allow people to process information more fully. This is why a Sigma's presence often feels grounding rather than rushed. From an evolutionary perspective, humans are wired to seek constant communication as a survival mechanism. Early tribes depended on fast exchanges of information to warn of danger or to coordinate group tasks. But what separated the thinkers and strategists of the past from the rest was their ability to step back, observe, and respond thoughtfully instead of reactively. Sigma males embody this ancient wisdom in a modern context. They don't view silence as awkward, but as a form of control, an opportunity to see beyond the noise of unnecessary chatter. In business meetings, social circles, or personal interactions, this ability often gives them the upper hand, because when they speak, people pay attention. Entertainment media often portrays such characters as the mysterious loner, the one who doesn't need to shout to be heard. Think of Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name, or Keanu Reeves' portrayal of John Wick. both calm, deliberate, and powerful, precisely because they refuse to be rushed. These fictional figures mirror the psychological reality of Sigma males. Their strength lies in their ability to wait, observe, and move with precision. While the world rushes forward, they remind us that timelessness, patience, and control are often the true markers of confidence. In many ways, a Sigma's deliberate nature isn't just a personal trait, it's a quiet rebellion against the frantic pace of modern life. Number two, he doesn't compete for attention. Unlike men who crave external validation, a Sigma doesn't compete for recognition or fight to stand in the spotlight. His strength lies in his detachment from applause, because he understands that true value isn't measured by the noise of a crowd, but by the substance of one's character. History and psychology both remind us that the loudest voices are not always the most influential. Psychologists call this quiet confidence, a state where self-assurance comes not from constant affirmation, but from an internal compass rooted in clarity and self-awareness. This is why a Sigma's presence often speaks louder than any words. People notice him not because he demands attention, but because his lack of need for it creates an aura of mystery that naturally draws others in. Consider how this contrasts with traditional social hierarchies. In groups, most men unconsciously jockey for dominance, competing through status symbols, achievements, or charisma. Yet Sigmas disrupt this dynamic by stepping outside of it entirely. Anthropologists studying social structures note that those who detach from hierarchy often end up exerting more influence precisely because they don't seem to seek it. Think of thinkers like Nikola Tesla or philosophers like Soren Kierkegaard, men who weren't chasing recognition, but whose legacies remain undeniable. The Sigma archetype reflects this same paradox. The refusal of attention often creates more of it. On a deeper level, this quiet strength resonates with how humans instinctively respond to contrast. In a noisy environment, silence is what captures attention. In a world obsessed with self-promotion, the man who doesn't advertise himself becomes magnetic. This isn't passivity, it's intentional restraint. A Sigma knows that real influence is not about being seen everywhere, but about leaving an impression when it matters. Just like gravity, invisible yet powerful, his confidence pulls others without effort. This is why his quietness often echoes louder than any shout. It unsettles, intrigues, and in time commands respect. Number three, he is immune to social pressure. In group settings, a Sigma male often stands out in subtle yet powerful ways. While many people instinctively mirror the majority opinion to feel included, he remains anchored in his own perspective. He listens carefully, not to respond or conform, but to weigh what's being said against his own inner compass. This independence of thought is rooted in psychology. Studies in social dynamics have shown that most people conform to group norms, even when those norms are clearly flawed, a phenomenon famously revealed in Solomon Ash's conformity experiments of the 1950s. In those studies, participants gave obviously wrong answers simply because everyone else in the group did. The Sigma male, however, is less susceptible to such pressures because his validation doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from within. This detachment from social approval doesn't make him arrogant, though it might appear that way to some. Instead, it reflects a self-sufficiency that allows him to filter ideas through his own reasoning. If the majority view aligns with his, he'll agree. But not because of numbers or popularity, only because he finds truth in it. If it doesn't, he's unafraid to stand alone. In evolutionary terms, such behavior echoes the role of outliers in human groups. While conformity ensured cohesion, nonconformists often drove innovation and survival by questioning assumptions or introducing new strategies. That same archetype lives on in the Sigma male today. What makes this especially fascinating is that his quiet resistance often unsettles others. When someone refuses to bend under group influence, it highlights how easily the rest do. This can trigger discomfort, even envy, because it exposes the fragility of their independence. Yet, far from rebelling for rebellion's sake, the Sigma male's stance is calm and deliberate. He is neither trying to dominate like the alpha nor blend like the beta. He simply chooses to remain true to his values. In a world that constantly urges conformity, through fashion, trends, or popular opinion, his inner compass becomes not just a personal strength, but also a reminder to others that individuality still has a place. Number 4, his energy feels self-contained. He doesn't drain others, nor does he feed off them. His energy feels balanced, like a closed circuit, calm, steady, and unshaken. This is why people often describe his presence as grounding. In psychology, this type of energy balance is linked to emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's internal state without relying heavily on external validation. Unlike extroverts, who often gain energy from social interaction, or highly dependent personalities who seek constant reassurance, a man with this centered aura maintains his vitality from within. It's a rare quality, and research in neuroscience even suggests that people who exhibit calm, regulated energy have lower cortisol levels, meaning they respond to stress more effectively. Think about how a grounded person feels in a chaotic environment, like a lighthouse in a storm. His presence doesn't just affect him, it influences those around him. Studies show that emotions can be contagious through a process called emotional resonance. When someone exudes calm stability, others often subconsciously match that frequency, experiencing reduced anxiety and greater clarity. This is why people describe such a presence as soothing or magnetic without being overpowering. He isn't trying to command the room, yet the room naturally adjusts to his rhythm. This balanced energy also connects to ancient wisdom traditions. In Taoism, the concept of yin and yang emphasizes harmony within oneself as the key to influencing the world. Similarly, Stoic philosophy taught that true strength comes from controlling one's inner state, rather than being controlled by external chaos. Modern mindfulness practices echo the same truth. The most powerful person is often the one who remains unshaken when everything else is unstable. In everyday life, this balance looks like the friend who listens without judgment, the colleague who doesn't panic when deadlines loom, or the man who remains composed during conflict. His energy doesn't spike or crash. It flows, steady and measured, like a circuit that powers itself. That is why people instinctively describe being near him as grounding. It's not just charisma, it's the science and art of inner balance radiating outward, silently reminding others of what true strength feels like. Number 5, he observes more than he speaks. A real Sigma watches carefully, and this watchfulness is not just casual observation, it's a deep, intentional awareness of his environment. Unlike many who rush to fill silence with chatter, the Sigma male understands that the quiet moments often reveal more than words ever could. Psychologists call this active observation, a skill linked to emotional intelligence, where a person is able to pick up on subtle cues such as body language, tone of voice, and even micro-expressions that flash across someone's face in a fraction of a second. These details can reveal hidden emotions like anxiety, attraction, or deception, things that most people miss because they are too focused on what's being said rather than how it's being said. When a Sigma does choose to speak, his words carry weight. This is not because he tries to sound wise, but because he values intention. Neuroscience suggests that silence can actually improve decision-making, as quiet reflection activates the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for thoughtful judgment. For the Sigma, silence is not uncomfortable or a void to be filled. It is a tool, a language in itself. This is why conversations with him often feel unusually profound. Even a pause, a glance, or a nod can communicate volumes, and those around him often find themselves re-evaluating their own thoughts after speaking with him. Interestingly, history shows that some of the most influential thinkers and leaders, such as Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, or Nikola Tesla, the inventor, embraced solitude and silence as part of their process. They understood that constant noise drowns out clarity while silence sharpens perception. The Sigma male embodies this same principle in modern life. His quiet observation is not detachment, it is mastery over distraction. He notices what others ignore and holds back until the right moment to speak, ensuring that when he does, people listen. In a world that prizes volume and visibility, the Sigma's silence unsettles because it cannot be easily read or controlled. He thrives in the understated power of restraint, proving that sometimes the most commanding presence is not the loudest voice in the room, but the one who listens the closest. This is what makes him both mysterious and impactful. His silence is not absence, it is presence amplified. Number 6, he avoids needless conflict. A Sigma doesn't waste energy proving himself because he understands that validation is a trap that keeps many men enslaved to external approval. Instead of flexing, boasting, or trying to dominate every interaction, he operates with quiet confidence. If someone challenges him, his instinct is rarely to escalate into conflict. Rather, he either withdraws or addresses the situation with precision, conserving his energy for battles that actually matter. This is not weakness, it is discipline. In fact, research in psychology shows that people who practice restraint in emotionally charged situations demonstrate higher levels of emotional intelligence. Unlike those who react impulsively, the Sigma uses logic and foresight to respond in ways that maintain his dignity and control. History and culture provide countless examples of this principle. Take the samurai of feudal Japan, who followed the Bushido code. Self-control, discipline, and the avoidance of unnecessary conflict were considered marks of true strength. Similarly, Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius emphasized responding to provocation with composure, noting that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This philosophy aligns perfectly with the Sigma male's mindset. He doesn't feel the need to prove himself to anyone because he knows his worth is not determined by outside recognition but by his own actions and principles. In today's fast-paced world where bravado and loudness often get mistaken for strength, the Sigma male's calm restraint can feel unsettling to others. Imagine being in a heated debate where one person is shouting, throwing insults, and trying to overpower everyone with noise. The Sigma, however, sits back, lets the chaos unfold, and then makes one sharp, deliberate statement that silences the room. His words carry weight precisely because they are not wasted. This ability to stay composed under pressure often makes him appear intimidating, even if he hasn't raised his voice once. What makes this discipline even more powerful is that it protects the Sigma's mental energy. Modern neuroscience tells us that constant reactivity drains the brain's resources, leading to stress and burnout. By avoiding unnecessary escalation, the Sigma conserves his focus for pursuits that truly matter, his goals, passions, and personal freedom. He doesn't need the last word, he needs results. That's why his restraint is not avoidance, but a strategic choice. A demonstration that real power lies not in the noise you make, but in the control you maintain. Number 7. He is unmoved by status symbols. Luxury cars, titles, or popularity hold little weight with a Sigma male because his sense of worth is rooted in something far deeper than external validation. Unlike many who measure success through material possessions or social recognition, he is driven by internal benchmarks, self-mastery, independence, and freedom. Psychologists often refer to this as the pursuit of goals for personal satisfaction rather than for outside applause. This inner compass creates a kind of stability that can feel unsettling to those who rely heavily on external approval. After all, in a world where social media likes and flashy displays of wealth often define status, encountering someone completely detached from that system is disarming. It challenges the very framework by which others measure themselves. Interestingly, studies in behavioral economics show that people who tie their self-worth to extrinsic markers often experience higher stress and lower overall well-being because such markers fluctuate with public opinion and circumstances. By contrast, individuals like the Sigma male cultivate resilience and peace of mind through self-validation. This detachment doesn't make him cold, rather it grants him the freedom to live authentically, unconcerned with playing society's games, which in turn unsettles those still caught in them. Number 8. You sense he could walk away at any time. Perhaps the most telling sign of a true Sigma male is the aura of freedom he carries. Unlike many people who cling to jobs, friendships, or relationships out of fear of being alone, a Sigma male refuses to let fear dictate his choices. He's not driven by a need for approval or security from others. Instead, he is anchored by his own principles. If a situation, job, or relationship violates his values, he does not create a scene, nor does he beg for acceptance. He simply walks away. This quiet self-reliance often unsettles those around him because in a world where conformity is the norm, such independence feels both mysterious and intimidating. Psychologists have noted that this kind of autonomy is rare in social dynamics. Humans are naturally wired for belonging. Evolutionary biology shows that survival once depended on being part of a group. To stand apart, therefore, requires a unique mindset. Sigma males embody this by valuing solitude, not as loneliness, but as a strength. Studies on introverted personalities, for example, suggest that those who thrive in solitude often develop deeper self-awareness and emotional resilience. This is precisely why a Sigma's detachment is not coldness, but a form of self-preservation and clarity. In practical terms, this means he does not stay in a toxic workplace just for the paycheck, nor does he remain in a draining friendship just to avoid awkwardness. Instead, he prioritizes inner peace over social comfort. That level of freedom is powerful. It sends a signal that his worth is not negotiable. While some may find it unnerving, it also commands respect. After all, in a world where most people fear letting go, the Sigma male proves that real strength lies in the ability to walk away. Meeting a real Sigma male is not about flashy gestures, clever words, or dramatic actions. It is about the subtle energy he carries, an energy that is quiet, steady, and unshaken by the currents of the world around him. In truth, what feels disturbing is not the Sigma himself, but the contrast he creates. He shows us how much noise we cling to, how deeply we rely on validation, and how often we sacrifice independence for acceptance. To recognize a Sigma is to recognize a different way of moving through life. He is not better than others, nor does he strive to be. He simply chooses freedom over approval, substance over appearance, and silence over noise. And in doing so, he becomes a reminder that true strength is rarely loud. It is often quiet, deliberate, and unbothered. So the next time you sense that grounded presence, the man who doesn't push to be noticed, yet is impossible to ignore, remember you may have just encountered a real Sigma male. And while it may feel unsettling, it is also an invitation to ask yourself where in your own life you can embody the same independence, the same restraint, and the same quiet strength. Because in the end, what disturbs us most about the Sigma is often the very thing we most need to learn. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't fight for the spotlight. It simply exists, steady, deliberate, and unbothered. For many men, strength is often measured by the obvious: broad shoulders, a loud voice, or a commanding presence in a room. But Sigma males embody something different. Their presence alone can shift the atmosphere, not because they try, but because they don't. This is where the paradox lies. Sigma males rarely see themselves as intimidating. They aren't chasing validation or trying to prove a point. They're simply living in alignment with their own values. Yet without realizing it, their independence, their silence, and their refusal to bend to the expectations of others often unsettles people more than aggression ever could. Think about it. A man who doesn't need approval is harder to control. A man who doesn't chase attention is harder to understand. And a man who carries himself with quiet certainty is harder to ignore. That kind of energy can be deeply intimidating, even when the Sigma isn't trying to be. What's fascinating is that most Sigma males underestimate this effect. They assume they're simply being themselves, keeping to their own lane and minding their business. But in reality, the way they carry themselves makes others second guess, hesitate, and sometimes even feel insecure. In this video, we'll take a calm, thoughtful look at 6 subtle but powerful signs that a Sigma male is far more intimidating than he realizes. As we go through each sign, you may recognize qualities in yourself or in someone you know that highlight just how much influence quiet confidence can truly have. Let's begin. Number 1, his silence speaks louder than words. Silence is often underestimated, but for the Sigma male, it is one of the most powerful tools in his arsenal. People live in a world saturated with sound. Constant chatter, notifications, background music, and endless explanations. Our brains have become conditioned to expect noise, and when that noise disappears, it can feel unsettling. This is why the Sigma's choice to remain quiet carries such weight. His silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It leaves a gap that others instinctively rush to fill, often exposing their own insecurities in the process. What seems like nothing more than restraint is, in reality, a subtle form of influence. Psychologists have long studied the effects of silence in human interaction. Research shows that when a pause lasts more than 4 seconds in conversation, people start to feel discomfort. They interpret the silence as judgment, disagreement, or disapproval, even if none of those feelings exist. This is why negotiations, interrogations, and even therapy sessions use silence as a tool. It encourages the other person to speak more, to reveal hidden thoughts, or to justify themselves unnecessarily. The Sigma male, who is naturally comfortable with quiet, wields this effect without even trying. His lack of words becomes a mirror, reflecting back the anxieties and assumptions of those around him. History offers countless examples of leaders and thinkers who understood this power. Abraham Lincoln was famous for his pauses, often letting silence stretch until his opponent filled it with rambling. In Japanese culture, the concept of ma, the space between sounds, teaches that silence can carry as much meaning as words. Even in modern business, the most effective negotiators know that the person who talks less usually gains more. The Sigma embodies this wisdom instinctively, standing apart from the noise of the crowd. For many people, this quiet presence is intimidating. It breaks the script of social interaction. When someone doesn't offer reassurance, small talk, or immediate responses, others are left to confront their own thoughts. They may wonder, what is he thinking? Does he disapprove of me? Did I say something wrong? In reality, the Sigma is simply comfortable with his own space. He doesn't feel the need to fill silence with meaningless words, and that independence unsettles those who rely on constant validation. His stillness communicates strength, not the loud, boastful kind, but the kind that holds steady even when everything else demands attention. Silence in his hands becomes both shield and weapon, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one left unsaid. Number 2, he doesn't seek validation. Most men measure their value through acknowledgement, titles, wealth, or recognition from others. Society has long reinforced this idea, from ancient warriors whose worth was tied to their victories to modern professionals who chase promotions and public praise. But the Sigma male breaks away from this pattern entirely. His sense of worth is not built on applause or approval. Instead, it is quietly rooted in his independence, his discipline, and his ability to remain unshaken by outside opinions. This detachment often confuses people. They are used to measuring influence by how loudly someone demands attention, not by how calmly someone ignores it. And that is precisely why the Sigma's presence feels intimidating, even when he doesn't try. Psychologists often highlight that human beings are wired for social validation. Studies show that positive reinforcement, such as praise, activates the brain's reward centers much like food or money. This explains why so many people naturally seek acknowledgement. It feels good. Yet when someone operates outside of this cycle, as the Sigma male does, it creates a sort of social paradox. He doesn't need the dopamine rush of being applauded, and that self-sufficiency unsettles those who rely heavily on external approval. It's not arrogance, but a deep comfort with solitude and self-definition that makes others second-guess him. History gives us examples of men who embodied this same energy. Think of philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his that a man's worth is found within, not in the opinions of others. Or consider figures like Nikola Tesla, who quietly worked in isolation, often disregarding fame or recognition, yet left behind innovations that still shape the world today. These men didn't shout their significance, yet their silent strength carried weight across generations. The Sigma male reflects this archetype in modern form, a man whose very refusal to be defined by others becomes a source of influence. Socially, this can be disarming. In a world where people often perform to be seen, someone who remains grounded and indifferent stands out like a riddle that can't be solved. Others may label him as mysterious, difficult, or even cold. But what they are really sensing is the discomfort of facing someone who cannot be manipulated by flattery or shame. His value system doesn't run on the fuel of external validation, and that makes him unpredictable. In truth, the Sigma's calm detachment is not just a shield, it's a quiet form of power, and it's that very power, invisible yet undeniable, that leaves such a lasting impression. Number 3, he walks away without drama. When others get caught in conflict, they often feel the need to win, whether through arguments, shouting, or attempts at control. But the Sigma male approaches these moments differently. Instead of engaging in the emotional tug-of-war, he quietly withdraws. This act of stepping back may appear passive on the surface, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful responses he can choose. Walking away without a word or a flare of anger leaves the other person without the reaction they were seeking. And that absence of drama can feel more unsettling than any heated confrontation. Psychologists have long studied the dynamics of conflict, And research consistently shows that when emotions escalate, rational thought tends to decline. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical decision-making, can be hijacked by the amygdala, which triggers fight or flight responses. This is why people often regret the things they say in the heat of an argument. The Sigma's choice to withdraw is not cowardice, it is a demonstration of emotional discipline. By refusing to give control of his actions to anger, he preserves his energy and maintains clarity. In essence, he steps outside the cycle of provocation, denying others the satisfaction of pulling him into chaos. History and philosophy echo this wisdom. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus advised that no man is free who is not master of himself. By removing himself from conflict rather than reacting impulsively, the Sigma embodies this ancient principle of self-mastery. Even in modern professional environments, conflict management experts note that disengagement is sometimes the most effective way to de-escalate tensions and protect one's mental health. Leaders who remain calm under pressure are remembered not for the noise they make, but for their composure. What unsettles others most about the Sigma's calm withdrawal is the silence it leaves behind. In a world conditioned to equate strength with volume, his refusal to engage feels mysterious, even intimidating. People expect to provoke a response, but when none comes, they are left questioning their own position. Did he walk away because he doesn't care, or because he has already won by not playing the game? That ambiguity is where the Sigma's quiet power lies. His clean break speaks louder than any argument, reminding those around him that true strength is not in domination, but in control. Number 4. His standards are uncompromising. Whether in friendships, work, or relationships, a Sigma male quietly upholds high standards. He doesn't lower them to fit in, and he doesn't explain them away. This unshakable consistency often makes others feel judged, even when he hasn't said a word. It's not arrogance, and it's not about trying to prove superiority. Instead, it reflects a deeper principle. The Sigma male lives by values that are non-negotiable. These values often revolve around independence, integrity, and authenticity, qualities that research in personality psychology has linked with higher self-esteem and stronger boundaries. Unlike people who bend themselves to match social expectations, a Sigma doesn't compromise what matters most to him. This quiet adherence to standards can unsettle those around him. In the workplace, for example, employees may conform to a culture of shortcuts or half-hearted effort. When a Sigma male refuses to do the same, others might interpret his behavior as silent criticism. Interestingly, studies on workplace psychology show that individuals who maintain consistent ethical standards often become moral reminders to their peers, unintentionally highlighting others' compromises. This explains why even silence can be intimidating. His actions speak louder than lectures ever could. In relationships, the same principle applies. A Sigma male doesn't chase validation or bend his identity to keep someone's attention. He knows that genuine respect and connection come from being authentic, not from lowering his boundaries. Sociological research on attraction suggests that people with clear self-concepts are often perceived as more confident and desirable, even if that confidence isn't verbally expressed. But for some, this can feel like a mirror reflecting their own insecurities. When someone is unsure of who they are, being around a man who knows himself can feel unsettling. Friendships, too, are filtered through this quiet consistency. A Sigma won't surround himself with those who exploit his loyalty or drain his energy. Instead, he invests in connections built on mutual respect. Psychologists refer to this as selective social investment, choosing fewer but deeper relationships, a trait that has been found to improve long-term well-being. But to outsiders, it can look like coldness or detachment, when in reality it's about quality over quantity. Ultimately, the Sigma male's refusal to lower his standards is both his shield and his magnet. It protects him from environments and relationships that don't align with his values, and it naturally draws those who resonate with his way of living. What makes this so fascinating is that he rarely intends to intimidate anyone. Yet his quiet strength, his unshakable consistency, and his unwillingness to compromise often reveal unspoken truths about others. That's the paradox of the Sigma male. His silence speaks, and his presence alone can challenge the world around him. Number 5, he's comfortable alone. Most people grow uneasy when faced with solitude. Silence and separation often feel like voids that need to be filled with chatter, companionship, or constant validation. Yet for Sigma males, solitude is not a void but a sanctuary. Their ability to embrace being alone, sometimes even preferring it over social interaction, sets them apart in ways that can appear unsettling to others. In a world where approval and attention are often currency, their self-reliance feels almost unearthly, as though they're operating on a different wavelength altogether. This isn't to say they dislike people, rather their independence means their sense of worth isn't tethered to others' presence or praise. Psychologists have long studied the effects of solitude, and research shows that spending time alone can increase creativity, improve concentration, and enhance emotional regulation. For most, however, too much isolation can feel suffocating, even threatening. Humans are inherently social creatures. Our ancestors survived in groups, relying on cooperation for food, shelter, and protection. That evolutionary wiring is still with us, making the Sigma's comfort in solitude appear strange, like swimming against the tide of human instinct. Yet solitude doesn't drain Sigmas, it recharges them. This is partly why many historical innovators and thinkers, from Nikola Tesla to Isaac Newton, were known to withdraw from society for long stretches of time, using the quiet to fuel groundbreaking discoveries. For Sigma males, solitude is not loneliness, it is freedom. They see it as a space to reflect, refine, and reset. In a noisy culture dominated by social media, public opinion, and the constant pull of external validation, choosing solitude looks rebellious. It can even provoke discomfort in others. Imagine a group of friends who always feel the need to go out together. When one person declines, content with staying home to read or work on a personal project, it challenges the group's unspoken need for collective approval. This simple act of being comfortable alone disrupts the rhythm of dependency, making the independent person seem mysterious, even intimidating. There's also a practical edge to this solitude. Studies show that people who spend regular time alone often display stronger problem-solving skills and higher resilience in the face of challenges. Without leaning on a crowd to make decisions, Sigma males develop clarity and decisiveness. Their independence becomes a kind of silent power, an inner compass that does not waver with every passing trend or opinion. This steadiness unnerves those who rely on group consensus for direction, making the Sigma's independence appear not just unusual, but formidable. In essence, solitude is the Sigma male's natural habitat. Where others see emptiness, they see possibility. Where others seek comfort in numbers, they find strength in the self. This profound independence may appear alien to those bound to the constant presence of others, but it is precisely what allows Sigmas to remain centered, self-sufficient, and quietly powerful. Their solitude is not a rejection of humanity, it is a mastery of it. By standing firm in silence, they remind the world that true strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply rests in stillness. Number 6, his focus is unwavering. While many people drift with the tides of trends, gossip, and outside expectations, Sigma males chart a different course. Their strength lies not in how loudly they project themselves, but in how quietly they move through the noise of the world. This stillness, in a society that thrives on constant chatter and attention-seeking, immediately makes them stand out. People are often unsettled by what they cannot easily categorize, and the Sigma male's refusal to conform to predictable patterns sparks both curiosity and unease. His quietness is not emptiness, it is discipline, and discipline is rare enough to be seen as a form of power. Psychologists often note that humans instinctively react to confidence even when it is unspoken. According to social perception studies, individuals who remain calm and composed under pressure are often viewed as more competent and dominant, regardless of their actual status. Sigma males embody this effect naturally. Their calm detachment gives them an air of mystery, and mystery is one of the oldest tools of influence. In history, leaders like Marcus Aurelius or even modern figures like Steve Jobs commanded respect not only by what they said, but also by the weight of their silence and presence. Silence, when used intentionally, forces others to lean in. It turns absence into authority. Another reason Sigma males appear intimidating is the psychological principle known as the scarcity effect. When something or someone is less available, it automatically feels more valuable. In a world where people overshare, chase validation, and compete for attention, the Sigma male does the opposite. His withdrawal makes him scarce, and scarcity magnifies his perceived worth. Research in behavioral economics confirms this. People attribute higher status to individuals who appear self-sufficient and difficult to access. This creates an aura of superiority without a single word spoken. Cultural narratives also reinforce this perception. Movies and literature often present the mysterious loner archetype as powerful, the silent cowboy, the wandering samurai, or the detective who solves problems by thinking deeply rather than talking excessively. These characters resonate with audiences because they represent independence in a world that often demands conformity. Sigma males in real life reflect this archetype, and it unsettles those who measure themselves by group approval. Interestingly, intimidation doesn't always come from aggressive action. It often comes from what people project onto the unknown. When others cannot read a Sigma male, cannot predict his thoughts or reactions, they fill in the blanks themselves, usually with exaggerated assumptions of power or danger. This psychological phenomenon, called projection bias, means that the Sigma's silence is not neutral. It becomes a mirror for others' insecurities. In essence, Sigma males are intimidating not because they try to be, but because their way of life challenges the ordinary. Their stillness is resistance in a chaotic world. Their detachment is proof of inner strength, and their mystery is a quiet reminder that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, and in that existence, it unsettles, inspires, and commands respect. A Sigma male rarely realizes the depth of his influence. What feels normal to him, silence, detachment, or independence, appears as strength to others. This contrast is where the mystery begins. Psychologists have long noted that humans instinctively equate calmness with control and authority. In fact, research in social psychology shows that people who speak less in group settings are often perceived as more powerful, even when their actual influence is minimal. For the Sigma male, this silence isn't a tactic, it's simply his natural state. Yet to others, it feels like an unshakable confidence. Detachment adds another layer. While many men seek validation through attention or approval, the Sigma thrives on autonomy. In evolutionary psychology, independence signals self-sufficiency, a trait historically linked to survival and leadership. Without meaning to, the Sigma projects an aura of dominance by simply existing outside the need for external affirmation. And then there's his quiet confidence, not displayed in bravado, but in a steady, almost unbothered demeanor. In a world addicted to noise and constant display, such stillness can be unsettling. It forces others to measure themselves against someone who doesn't compete for the spotlight, which can feel intimidating. The Sigma may think he's just minding his own business, but others see a man who doesn't bend, doesn't chase, and doesn't need, making his presence feel like a mirror that exposes their insecurities. Ironically, the Sigma is least aware of this power, and that's what makes it all the more profound.